Have you ever loved something so much that it felt like a piece of your soul was attached to it? Now imagine the person you trusted the most, taking every one of your precious belongings and throwing them in the trash, like your memories, your identity, your happiness meant nothing. That's exactly what happened to me. But here's the twist. He had one thing, one treasure, he loved more than anything else in the world. And when I discovered what he did to my things, I made sure his most priceless possession would never see the light of day again. Stay with me, because this revenge, it was years in the making. And when karma came full circle, it was sweeter than I could have imagined. And hey, if you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or just wanted justice for someone who thought they could walk all over you, then you are going to love the story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in, because today you're about to hear how one ex's cruelty led to the most satisfying act of payback I've ever pulled off. When I first met him, I thought I'd found someone who finally understood me. He wasn't perfect, no one is, but there was this charm about him. He had this way of looking at you, like you were the only person in the room. For a while, I let myself believe that. I let myself believe he was the safe space I'd always wanted. But behind that charm, behind the smiles, there was a side of him I didn't see right away. See, when you love someone, you overlook the little things. The cutting remarks disguised as jokes. The times he would roll his eyes when I spoke about my passions. The way he acted like his interests, his belongings, his needs mattered so much more than mine. And the thing that should have been the biggest red flag, the way I started losing myself. I began having manic episodes, emotional breakdowns, spiraling in ways I'd never experienced before. Being with him was like living on a seesaw. You never knew if today you'd be up in the clouds or crushed into the ground. Still, I stayed. Why? Because when you're in it, you convince yourself that maybe this is love. Maybe this is what relationships are supposed to feel like. Eventually, the cracks grew too deep to ignore. We had fights that ended in silence, apologies that felt empty, promises that broke faster than they were spoken. When we finally broke up, it wasn't fireworks or screaming matches. It was quieter, almost numb. He looked at me and said, "I think we're done, aren't we?" And for the first time in months, I actually agreed. Yeah, we are. We divided things up. I had some of his stuff, and he had some of mine. There was one item, though, that stood out. His watch. This wasn't just any watch. To him, it was the watch. A sleek, expensive piece he wore like it was part of his identity. He used to polish it obsessively, showing me every little detail. He once even said, "If I ever lose this, I'll lose a part of myself." At the time, I thought it was silly, but he meant it. So after the breakup, when he asked if I still had it, I said yes. And he said, "Okay, I'd like it back, please." No drama, just polite words. I agreed, thinking, sure, we're ending this like adults. I'll give him his watch. He'll give me my stuff. Clean break. But life doesn't work like that. Weeks passed. A month, to be exact. I was still waiting for my things. Sentimental things. Journals, letters, trinkets from trips, even childhood keepsakes I'd accidentally left at his place. Finally I asked, "Hey, when can I get my things back?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything before the words even came out of his mouth. Oh, yet about that. I threw them away. Just like that. No apology. No guilt in his voice. Just casual, like he tossed out an old pizza box. My heart stopped. "What do you mean you threw them away?" "I don't know," he shrugged. "They were just your stuff. I didn't think you'd care. Didn't think I'd care." He had taken pieces of my life, my memories, and decided they were worthless. In that moment, something inside me broke. But something else lit up. A tiny spark of anger that whispered, he doesn't get to do this. He doesn't get to walk away without feeling what I felt. For the next month, that spark grew into a fire. Every time I walked past the shelf where my journal should have been, or when I reached for the necklace my grandmother gave me that was now gone forever, the fire spread. And every time I looked at his watch, still sitting there in my drawer waiting, I heard his words in my head. "If I ever lose this, I'll lose a part of myself." He had stolen my memories, my history, my sense of safety, and I had the one thing he couldn't bear to lose. 2 months after the breakup, I stopped waiting. I opened my drawer, picked up the watch, turned it over in my hand, the way he used to. It gleamed under the light. Perfect, untouchable. I whispered, "You don't get to keep this when I have nothing left." And then, I smashed it. The sound was sharp, like glass shattering in a silent room. Pieces scattered across the floor. The face cracked, the hands twisted, the band snapped. I stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the wreckage. For the first time in months, I felt calm. No tears, no regret, just peace. I swept the pieces into a bag and threw them in the trash, just like he had done with everything I loved. Weeks later, when I was deleting old social media accounts, I stumbled across one of his forgotten profiles. Out of curiosity, I clicked. And there it was, a post from just days earlier. A long, emotional paragraph where he was reminiscing about that watch, talking about how it had been his lucky charm, how it carried memories of better times, how losing it had been one of the hardest things to accept. I stared at the screen, my lips curving into a slow smile. He thought he'd just lost it, that it had slipped away. But I knew the truth. I had taken it from him, just like he'd taken everything from me. The irony was almost too perfect. For a moment, guilt pricked at me. Was I too harsh? Did I cross a line? But then I remembered standing in front of him, hearing him say, "They were just your stuff. I didn't think you'd care." And all that guilt dissolved. Because now I knew justice had been served. Picture this. A man so obsessed with an object, so convinced it defined him, sitting there, mourning its loss, completely unaware that the very person he discarded had been the one to destroy it. The watch wasn't just broken. His arrogance was. His belief that he could treat me like nothing and keep everything he cared about intact. That illusion was shattered too. And me. I walked away lighter, stronger, free. That moment wasn't just about revenge. It was about taking back power. About saying, "You don't get to erase me and keep your treasures untouched." Looking back, I realized something important. Revenge isn't always about hurting someone else. It's about balance. About reminding people that actions have consequences. He treated my memories like garbage, so I returned the favor. And in that destruction, I found healing. Sometimes, the sweetest closure isn't an apology, it's karma.so. What do you think? Did I go too far, or was it the perfect dose of poetic justice? So what do you think? Did I go too far, or was it the perfect dose of poetic justice? If this story gave you chills, smash that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Because at the end of the day, nothing hits harder than karma served cold.